I still
Forget,
like
guys.
hula hoop.
Here we go. All right. Well, just getting back from lunch. Some of us on Central Time joining probably in the middle of lunch. I just zoomed in with a team down in Florida. Andrew had a great time with them, talking about video and how to distribute it into their sales process. But also just how much this personal brand correlates with everything is pretty cool. But all that to say, they had Jimmy John's on the table,
Ooh.
and I was like I was like eating my little like protein bar like Jimmy John's, man. I was my mouth was watering. So now, hopefully, everybody had a great lunch, and you've got your afternoon beverage of choice, and you got your notepad. Some of you guys probably multitasking for sure, listening in. But today's gonna be pretty powerful. So, Andrew, thanks for joining us. I know this is kind of your bailiwick. I know you do a lot of trainings on personal brand. I think each one of us have a personal brand, whether we know it or not. So I think having somebody in our life to help us articulate it so that we can add metrics around it is pretty impactful. And Andrew, that's what you've helped me do for sure. With my brand, because the more focus we have, like I said in the video this morning, the more focus we have on it equals more consistency with our messaging, which then equals more conversion in our sales, which is pretty powerful. 10 to 20%, the statistic is professionals and companies who leverage their brand effectively, 10 to 20% more business capture. It's pretty powerful. So without further ado, gents, welcome to the call. Andrew, thanks for joining us. David, like, why don't you take it away and kick us off? Kind of like what comes to mind when you think brand? You've been at this sales game a lot longer than most people on the call. So what comes to mind, brother?
Were you adding them all up and it was still close?
No, no,
Probably.
no, 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 no. You are the sage. You are the sage for sure. You are the sage for sure.
No, great topic, super important. I have always really focused on the consistency of my brand with the relationships that I have. But what was interesting, I mentioned to Tim when we were talking earlier about this podcast and brand, and my mind went like a different direction, which then pulls it back into your personal brand. I was thinking of food, cereal. Uh, you know, you mentioned Jimmy John's, and the same elements that make for a very successful corporate cereal, retail brand, retail to consumer brand is the same thing that's important in your personal brand. If you think about the places you go, the things you eat, the things you experience, they're consistent, they're clean, it's friendly, it's easy. It tastes good, but it consistently tastes good. The packaging looks good. When any of those things are amiss, your antennas kind of go off a little bit. That this is not what I came to expect. The same scenario in personal brand.
Yep.
Yes. uh, Do you look good? Are you dressed professionally? Are you a person of your word? Do you do what you say you're going to do? Time in, time out. Yes, we all have a bad day, and those that we've created a great personal brand or a relationship with another type of brand, we will give some grace if it's off center for a day, because we want, if it doesn't live up to our expectations. Remember back that even early on, we had some local sales teams. We were in cellular and wireless mobility. When we would have on an annual basis, we would bring a clothier in to talk about proper dress, proper
Yep.
grooming, proper attire, because that's the brand we wanted in the market at that time. At that time, it probably, in remembering back, it probably was a suit and tie type of world.
Sure.
Now it's business casual, but we don't, so your brand is super important. Do you want to show up like Tom Hanks in Castaway? No. So your brain, oh, well, at certain
I'm
times,
joking. I'm
yes.
joking. Yeah.
So that's where my mind went. It was very interesting because I think about the brands that I am loyal to, that I expect certain things day in and day out, time and time again, and they are consistent. And
Yeah.
for a person, and we'll get into the different types of brands, both corporately, but then how it relates to individuals. Um, you know, my brand is built on please and thank you, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. Uh, you know, Dressing appropriately, proper, doing what I say I'm going to do, going the extra mile, even if I'm on LinkedIn, I'm going to continue to like and comment and be
Yeah.
active. But that's my brand. If Tim didn't see me on LinkedIn for 3 weeks, liking or commenting to something, he's probably going to reach out and say, "Man, are you okay?" Because
Yeah.
you're off your brand. So
Sure.
that's where my mind went. But it started with, um, I guess, Cocoa Puffs and Rice Krispies, and you mentioned Jimmy John's. We love Jimmy John's. It's always consistent, and that's what I love about it. Know exactly what to expect, and as a buyer, knowing what to expect, hopefully it's something that's good, is very comforting. So that's where I went.
Expectations that are powerful. Andrew,
Mhm.
what comes to mind when it comes to building a personal brand?
I was jotting some notes as David was talking because I think when we start thinking about brands, we like to imagine and think about the brands we resonate with in the marketplace, period, right? You might be a big fan of Elon Musk, so you love Tesla and everything they stand for. You might be a big Apple user and you love the user-centered experience. And David, you talked about that a little bit with ease of use. What I found in consulting people individually is there's typically a big chasm between what we can see in the marketplace from some of these big brands, and then how do we actually simplify it or extrapolate what that means to us individually. And that's where I see a lot of people get hung up because they think that in order to build a good brand, it has to be as polished, it has to be as great as some of these big brands that we really resonate with as far as production quality and or, you know, all the stuff that goes into building a brand and getting a brand out there, right? So that's where I see a huge chasm in building brands. How do you take it from like your favorites, make it very specific to you locally, and how you can be consistent on it. And then the second piece, and David, you kind of hit on this, of identifying what are the specific parts of your brand that you need to focus on. Not what I want to all the time. Now, we want to do what we want, but where do you need to focus based on your strengths? And what I'm really excited about today is the ability to zoom in on some specific archetypes of brands, because I think when you start there, it allows you to be very specific with what do I actually need to do, like what mirrors me and my voice individually. Yep. So what do I actually need to do versus some stuff that maybe I want to do, but it's not really in line with my brand. And so I'm not going to do it. So like Tim, we talked earlier, like you and I, like we think we're funny, but we're not necessarily the most humorous guys out there, right? Like we're not the jokers. We're not constantly just laughing, and we're pretty serious minded folks. So like we sometimes, like I know in my past, I've tried too far to lean into some of the humorous stuff where if it's right, it's right, but it's not really in line with who I am as a person, my individual brand. So just a real life example of sometimes we're chasing too many rabbits. And I've really been focused on this as I'm talking lately and speaking to people. We got to stop chasing all the rabbits, because the dog that chases all the rabbits doesn't catch any of them. You get distracted, we chase after something else. And so coming into what are those things we can do consistently and not chase too many rabbits at once with our brands.
Andrew, I'm glad you mentioned something. Maybe it jogged something in my memory. We have to be our authentic self. You cannot fake something for a long period of time. That's where your lack of consistency. So a lot of your brand is based on what is comfortable for you. How can you be your authentic self?
Yeah, and the other thing I'll say, and then we'll go through the rest of the slides for some housekeeping, then jump in, and Andrew's going to take the training away. But one of the things I will say too is there's, David, you brought up, like, think about the products we interact with and love, and we find that the expectation is consistent. We would refer it to a friend because there's consistency with the expectation. We know it's like the restaurant that you don't know if it's going to get right, and you have a big wig in, you're like, let's not go there. Maybe if it's just family, or if it's my kids one Tuesday night, I can chance it, but not this. This is too high stakes to risk. The same happens with your referral partners out there. If you're not showing up consistent with your brand, or they don't know what to expect, what version they're going to get of you. So products versus service organizations, which here in the real estate industry on this live monthly training, we target loan officers, real estate agents, Title 8 sales reps. Like, we're all in the service industry, right? So like, how are we showing up? We carry so much more than ABC Title or, Caldwell, Bankers, or, Ascension Mortgage, like whatever it is. People don't know that company brand as much as they know that person who's sitting across the loan application or the listing appointment. they buy the personal brand and they will refer. And this is why 10 to 20% higher capture rate in business, it happens because people refer when they know what to expect. And so, Andrew, what you said so beautifully too is a lot of us will see something we like and try to copy it. And I think that that's the danger. You have a lot of copycat brands. We coach a lot of teams, and while we should absolutely understand our competitive landscape, it blows my mind how many people are plugged into their competitor across town, into everything they're doing on social media or TikTok, and they're just following their competitor around trying to imitate. You are disservicing yourself. It is a huge FOMO that we want to deliver you from today by giving you a solid foundation on how to go build your personal brand where you could literally tune out all the noise and everyone else who's, because you know what, the person you're following is probably just copycatting somebody else. So we literally have diluted versions of people, and you all start, what happens to us, we all start kind of blending and looking the same, as opposed to like, I go to that person because this is so cool about that person. Like, it's that the thing about Seth Godin, David, you forward Seth to me so many times. He resonates with you, resonates with a lot of people we work with. But think about Seth. Like, I think when I think Seth, I think concise, witty. He's okay with being like a little kind of goofy, but he's himself. Like, and he doesn't mind being like controversial, like about marketing. Like, he knows his why. He's really honed his brand. And it's very much him. There's no other person I can think of that's like an email once a morning that I can read in 30 seconds and like no one else. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of the essence of today as we get in. So what would you guys add? Your wheels are turning. So let's.
I want to add something to, and it's a caution, and be caution as you scale as an organization or as a person. I'll give you a prime example. You know that Simon Sinek is one of my favorites. And I love watching his videos. I just love, again, very authentic. He is his authentic self. So his company has grown, and now there's a lot of stuff coming out of the organization, his organization, that I look at. It's like, that's not him. That's not him, and I gravitate away from it. But I'm still looking for the stuff that is truly authentically him. His interviews, his 90-second snippets of stuff. So just as organizations grow, and that's why you have to be your authentic self, because it's hard to replicate Andrew or Tim. Probably easier to replicate me, but just be careful of that. And but you have to be your authentic self. It's kind of like, you get to a certain age, you can't tell any lies, because you're not going to remember who you told what to, and you might as well just tell the truth, and then it always goes back into your memory bank. So
with 14 siblings, that was like 2 years of age for me.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
It didn't work well in that dynamic.
Andrew,
so,
you were jotting stuff down.
I'm jotting stuff down because it's and David, it's so funny. Like, we track on the same level on some of this stuff so well. You brought up Simon Sinek. So as Tim's talking about brand, some of us, I think, confuse our brand with what we do. And if you're thinking like, well, my brand is what I do, it's not. It's who you are. So that's the two very different things there, who I am and what I do. Now, at some point in our lives, we all probably want to merge those two things, where what we do and what we are very similar tracks, because that's when we really enjoy what we do and we're having fun in life at that point. However, I think about, if you all remember Simon's original video, one of his original TED Talks, he wrote like a Y in the middle with a circle, and then he worked his way outward when he came to branding. And the brands that actually get it, they're not speaking about what they do. They're out there speaking about why they do it. Why they do it goes to the heart of the brand. So how does that correlate to a person? Well, why do you do what you do? That's where we start. Like, what are you good at actually being? Are you a counselor type? Are you an advisor type? Are you a listener type? Like, we're going to get into the archetypes here in a minute, but it has to start with what we are and why we do it. And then it moves outward, and the brand promise is what we do. So our brand promise is the perfunctory versions of who we are as people and how we operate. And so I hope that makes it clear for everybody on, like, you got to start being more of you to build your authentic personal brand. And then today, hopefully we'll help you guide that. Like, where do I start? Because I think, and that's where we can have 25 different rabbits we could chase after. And we can, by answering some simple questions, know exactly where we need to start and start honing our communication in on those specific pieces.
Yeah.
So
And repeating what you just said for the chat there. Start with why. Like, why do you do? Your brand is about like, why do you do what you do? That's the heart of everything. So starting with the why and working out to the what, I think is what you were asking to be repeated there. So real quick, just so we can get the housekeeping out of the way, let me share just a few slides with you additionally. So again, Andrew, thanks for joining us. Listen, if you are on today, we really work not to clutter your inbox. So please scan the QR. This will take you right to the Energy for Sales YouTube channel, freshly launched last year, where we're storing and housing the recordings. So many of you guys asked after last month. We had Tom Coates on. We talked about LinkedIn, and we got a lot of replies like, please send the recording out on this. So it is right there for you on the YouTube channel. And in fact, if you turn on the notifications, you'll get, you'll get the little ding, or when you check in with YouTube. Hopefully you have YouTube notifications turned off so they don't distract your phone. But when you check in with YouTube, you'll see them right up there in the bell, and you'll see, Energy for Sales uploaded 2 new videos, so, or whatever out of that month. So we want these trainings accessible for you guys, not only for you to go back and reference, but many of you have asked, can I forward this to my team? 100%. And in every recording, if you click it in the description, there's the link to register for next month's recording. So you can just stay with it, right? Again, it's the consistency, but we don't like to clutter inboxes, especially in the real estate industry. We are already enduring email clutter. So get subscribed, scan that QR code. If you have any trouble, just go over to YouTube and Energy for the number 4 sales. But like I mentioned, Tom Coates did a great job last month. More than a resume, using LinkedIn in our sales. David and I talked about direct messaging in our sales. Very, very powerful. So check it out. And then also, and again, in each of the recordings on YouTube, in the description, you can register for next month, and you can also click where it says send us your questions. So many of you take us up on this each month and send us in questions. Sometimes we Zoom in with folks one-on-one, or we come in and speak to your team based on the questions we get, but we try to carve out 20 minutes at the end of each one of these trainings to answer those questions live. So take us up on this. I will tell you, David has mentored me now, what, 15, 12, maybe 10
Seems
for
like
sure.
100.
We've been working together.
Seems
but
like 100.
You were my sales coach before I even got into training 15 years ago, most likely. So, and I will tell you, I've run so many scenarios by David. Actually, just this last weekend, hey man, sent him over another scenario. Hey, how do we land this business? What's the best approach here? A little bit more of a complex sell. Send us those questions you have, and it's a long form box. You can speak into it, and sometimes you need to give us a little bit of context. Totally fine. Just drop us your questions. We want this to be very user friendly and also engaging with you guys. And then as we go through the training today, use the chat as well. So we love seeing your questions. And then, we're going to jump in to some fun archetypes today. So Andrew, David, wasn't it Carl Jung who originally came up with, the archetype? So we want to give credit where credit's due. This has gone in so many directions since the original psychology of it. But there's a natural kind of what comes easiest for you in your voice and your tone. And the whole psychology behind it is it also takes courage to live there, to live in who you are. So we're going to go in, hopefully bring some science to practical, and just kind of merge it all together with sales and marketing in a way that you can then just go and start activating with. So Andrew, tell me when you're ready. We'll jump into the quiz for everybody as well. But where do you want to kick this thing off? Right here? And
well, let's kind of start with the quiz. I know I teased it out there, but if you want to start with the quiz, because I have some thoughts on that. We're going to get into this a little bit as we go through, but a few thoughts on the quiz would be, one of my beefs with this quiz, again, being frank and honest, is that there are a couple questions within it, as Tim shares it here, that I feel I could go really strongly 2 or 3 ways with some of the answers, where it only lets you pick one answer. So right off the bat, you're going to notice that when you go through, I think, what, 10 questions, Tim?
There's 10 questions. Yeah.
So we're going to get into this and at kind of the end, tie it together as far as how some different types, if you find that you're a blend of a couple or you have some different leanings, how those can play. But what I'd recommend is maybe take the quiz twice. So like just mark down like, okay, I picked this question as like, I really ranked it. That was truly number one, but this one was like a strong second. Go back through and answer the quiz again with some of those others that were strong seconds. And you might be able to find you have 2 types of brand archetypes you can kind of complement when it comes to the type of brand and content and things you put out there into the world to build your brand. So that's just kind of a PSA to start. Tim,
Well,
are you going to share
that's
yours, or
great.
do
Yeah,
you want to go through the types?
Yeah, let me share. Let me share. So I just put in the chat for everybody. So if you can take a moment, pause what you're doing, or if you're fully engaged here, just grab that link, open it up. It literally takes, and I would encourage you, just go ahead and take it now. Don't overthink it. Like Andrew said, I mean, there's a few that you would say, hey, so for instance, there's 10 questions. Let's just roll through it together. I think that's the best way to see it. All right. So question number 1, and I'll give you everyone a chance to grab that link. Go ahead and click it. Okay. All right. Question number 1. Now, this is going to ask from an organizational standpoint, but I've seen
Just
many
replace
of
it.
these. I've
replace
seen many
it
of
with
these
you.
quizzes that are personally driven, and it's pretty much the same. So just, what is your greatest strength? Okay. So just click down through here. I'm going to click on mine, but I don't want to say it out loud. If you're looking at yours, I don't want to influence your brain at all. But I'm going to go ahead and
let's do like a 15-second clock on each question, Tim, and then
we'll do that.
We'll give a 15 seconds each question, and then Tim will do his.
All right. How about you just say next to me? You be my timekeeper.
That works for me.
Andrew, I see exactly what you mean. I mean, there are 3 right here I could choose that I think are myself.
Right.
It'd almost be, yeah.
All right. Question number 2.
Yep. Question number 2. All right.
So which employee let's see, which employee is most likely to win Employee of the Year at your company? So, or what would cause you to win Employee of the Year, right? So just flip it around personal. So.
All right, go ahead, Tim. All right. That you do. All right.
Question number 3. Which tone best fits what you want your brand to be?
Love it.
You want to read this one, David?
Sure. Question 4. Which of these would be the worst thing for your brand? That's an easy personal brand.
Yeah, there were a few of those there that I resonated with, right?
Andrew, why don't you read this next one?
Our customers would say that we were.
I had a hard time between 3 and 4 on this one, but I picked 4.
Awesome.
Question 6. Which of these types of content are you most drawn to?
There you go. All right, let's move on. I think people are getting the hang of this, probably answering pretty quickly. But sometimes you do have to think. So if you're thinking, take your time. No rush. Question 7, I'll read, David. How does your brand or product or service help people?
I also struggled between, I think it was number 3 and then number 7 on this one. But again, just land on one. Land on the one that you lean most towards. Just don't overthink it.
And that's a great point. A lot of the time, your gut, your first answer is probably the correct one if you think too hard about it. So question 8, if you look ahead 5 to 10 years, how would you define your success?
Andrew, is funny because every time we talk, I'm like, well, will this last? Will this be around in 10 years? I don't want to work on stuff, so I'm always kind of, and it's funny because when you told me like that's part of your brand, that's probably what it's true. It's like, it's part of who you are. All right. Next one. I think actually there's 9. No, there's 10. I'm sorry.
There you go. Which of these statements best describes what sets you apart from the competition? That's a good one too. again, as you're going through, you're probably like me and you're like, man, there's like two here that I could
What
absolutely choose.
and one way I kind of thought about this on my own brain is like when I leave a customer or when I'm with a customer, what am I always leaving wanting, like with? Because we all have a drive when we're in front of somebody serving somebody. We all have a drive, like what motivates us. So that would be another way to think about this question. All right, number 10. David, you want to read this last one?
Yes, I can. Which of these do you believe to be most true about the world?
Love it.
All right. So once you click next, what's really cool, you're just going to enter in your name. You're going to enter in your email address, and then you're going to enter in, if you want to sign up for the newsletter, you can. I'm not going to on this one. I already did on my personal. All right, and then just click submit. And what you're going to have right away is well, where's my button?
It says we'll get in touch with you. Yeah.
Okay, well, then what you're going to have is you're going to get an email, and I have mine pulled up here. So I'll just go over to it because I already took this earlier. So you're going to get an email. You click on the email with your result, and you're going to get a result. It's going to tell you which of the 12 you are. So we'll come back to mine after Andrew runs through the 12 because I want to draw practical application to a specific brand. But you're not the explorer. Maybe you are. If you're the explorer out there, I want to see a high five in the chat because I want to high five you as a fellow explorer. But, you know, we know Dave is the sage. And Andrew, what was yours?
Mine was kind of I did it twice because the first one was the innocent. And again, because I think some of the questions that I could go for. And then the second one that I did came out, let me look here. It was the ruler. So it was a weird dynamic, but probably based on the topics I'm talking about or wherever I'm at. But it was cool. We're going to talk about that, how some of these can work together as well. So
what I'm going to throw in the chat is a handout, and this will have all 12. It'll also have kind of a brief description of all 12. Andrew's going to run us through those. So Andrew, the floor is yours, and we'll go through. And Robert, to answer your question, I'm not exactly sure how quickly. Mine came in within like 5 minutes. So if by the end of this training you don't have it, let me know. But you should get it pretty quickly.
They may have gotten overwhelmed with all of you doing yours at the same time. So who knows? But little anecdote there. So yeah, let's jump in. Tim, you have the screen. Let's pull up the 12 types. I'm going to go through and just give some examples of the different brands and then some of the larger brands out there that embody this. And then we'll share kind of how it goes into your personal brand. So the 12 brand archetypes, and we'll start, right at the top. I'm not going to read the summary there, but the first one we'll get into is the innocent. So emphasizes positivity, honesty, optimism, and simplicity. A couple brands to think about here would be like when you see commercials or you see how they market, would be like Dove and Coca-Cola. So it's always positive. It's simple. It's relatable and it's honest, right? So just think of that. And then from a personal perspective, I think it just comes to a genuine desire to make things better. So for me, that's what this brand archetype is about. Like, when you show up in a room, do you just want to make it better? Do you want to help? And then do you have more of a straightforward approach to the problem solving? So simplicity and a genuine desire to get to the bottom of it. So some of you might be resonating with that.
Andrew, I love that you went there. I was just on with somebody and they were talking about doing video and how sometimes they overthink it, or it's not as nice as, or it's not as put together. And I asked them this, I said, ask yourself the question the next time you create some content or video or even texting somebody because you're tripping over, like, should I send this? Should I not? Again, in sales, right? We're living in this, we got to exercise that courage. I said, does it add value? And is it helpful? Is it helpful? It doesn't have to be perfect. It just needs to be helpful. And they were like, wow, that's actually perfect. That's really going to help me overcome. So I love that you said that. It's just this is actually very, very, you don't have to put a lot of fluff in stuff. You come across very pure-hearted, right? You are in it for them. So
yeah, some of that too might, because you are pure-hearted. If you ever feel like people might view you as naive, that can be one of the kind of consequential things of being having the innocent kind of brand, is someone might sit there and think you're naive because you have a pure heart towards something. So just keep that in mind. That could be one of the side effects, I guess, of that brand type as well. So let's jump into number 2, which is the sage. So think about brands like Google, BBC. So this is like prioritizing intellect, knowledge, wisdom, and insights. So they want to be a one-stop shop for everything about their area of expertise. No surprise with a Google, with the suite of things that they do and how they've integrated what people want into people's lives. They want to provide insight and that wisdom to people. And some of the things that I think about here with this are, this is more like you're intellectual. So like you really have a passion and a desire to help people build their knowledge or build their wisdom. And you really want to get to the heart of a matter. Like you're not going to take surface level anecdotes like I just gave, like the website must just be busy, which is why you didn't get your results back. So if you were like, no, Andrew, that's definitely not the case, you might be a sage, because you want to get to the heart of the matter. You want to get down to the truth.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the overview of that one. Again, intellect, truth finding, insightfulness. Any comments there, or do you just want to keep rolling through?
Well, we'll keep rolling, but I mean, from a sales standpoint, and we're going to zoom back into each of these, thinking through like a social media and also like a sales scripting standpoint. So we'll keep the high level overview going for sure.
Cool. So the explorer is really think about pitching, pioneering freedom, the possibilities of what could be. These are brands like Jeep, the North Face. I think of like Columbia, like outdoor apparel. Like think about these brands that are really, you're like, man, I wasn't thinking about going to Canada to go hike the North Pole or go up into the ice caps, but now I saw this commercial. I'd like to go see some polar bears.
Right.
So, I mean, they're really appealing to people's desire to explore, to freedom, and in more of a personal way. Are you someone who likes to take adventures? Are you kind of that person that's going to go do something that might be a little risky, but you love a challenge, and Tim, it makes sense why you're an explorer just in your personal life. You're tearing down half your house right now to build a massive extension and you're doing it all yourself. So you love that challenge of something new. It's adventure. You don't know it all, but you're going to learn as you go and you're excited about it. So you're always looking. I imagine it this way. If you are always looking for the next adventure or something that's going to stretch you and grow you, like, man, I want to go hike that mountain, but right now I'm about 25 pounds too heavy to do that without having a heart attack. So I need to go have that goal and get in shape. You might be more of the explorer type.
One thing I'll say, just since you landed on mine, is, and this is something I've learned, and I think it definitely has come with age. And also I think as you meet different people, understand, especially right before we get to the outlaw here, understand that number one, everyone is not me. As I coach teams and leverage like maybe a sales script, I cannot use mine. And that's why I tell teams, you can't use my script verbatim because this script might not be you. My sales script reaching out to David may be something like, hey, David, I'm wondering what challenges you have in your company right now. I've been helping executive level, C-suite work through current challenges with implementing video in their sales, the AI technology. And I think that there is a way to balance it with, and so I'm kind of taking my clients, my prospective clients, on a let's explore this together.
Yeah.
But if you're the innocent or if you're the sage, that might not be your approach. So we'll come back and dig into some sales scripting, but just keep in mind, if you're a sales leader lead your sales team to, like Jeff Bajorek says, sell like them. help them understand their brand. Now, you might have a strategic brand as a company, but each one of those people who are on your sales force, they have a personal voice. Let them interact with your brand through their personal voice and empower them to be more of them. Because, and then the other thing is, don't take your brand type and think people are less than or more than because of their brand type. Leverage that. Leverage them. Let them speak into you and let you speak into them. Play to each other's strengths on the sales team and also your referral partners. Play to each other's strengths. Celebrate them for living in their brand voice and their brand archetype. So, which will.
So, yeah, and I kind of forgot to go back. I started with the innocent. I forgot to kind of go there. There can be some perceived drawbacks to each brand type I think you want to be aware of. So I'm just going to hit on a few quickly. So
yeah,
for the sage, like because you're an intellectual, you seek for the truth, you can absolutely come across as being kind of out of touch or detached or kind of pretentious. So again, you got to know that about the brand type. Like, is this too in depth where I'm losing people? And just very frankly, not anyone specifically, but I think in our field, Tim, where we work in title insurance and real estate, it's very easy for us to embody this in our business brands, being the source of knowledge, wisdom, and insight, where we lose the consumer, we lose the
get lost in the legalese. We call it getting lost in the legalese.
Because we get a little bit. So I kind of want to call it that. And then with the explorer, you can be perceived as unable to stop being restless, or it's always the next thing. And so the ability with your brand to know that, I think, is powerful. Like, not only what's good about it, but what can be the detriment to that. And so that's cool. And then let's get into the outlaw, because I'm excited to keep moving through these. I like the outlaw brands. The outlaw brands are fun. Maybe this is like my my inner
alter. Is this your alter ego?
Yeah, like this is the tattooed, long-haired, non-glasses wearing version of Andrew. All right.
Yes.
So these
are the RESPA non-compliant oftentimes. No, I'm just kidding.
Right. Exactly. So outlaw brands really are about breaking conventions and challenging status quo. So they're not just going to come in and fit in. So think about like Harley Davidson. Think about like Virgin Airlines. I would even say like Tesla is definitely in this outlaw phase of like challenge everything. And yeah, you don't think we can go to Mars, like SpaceX, right? Like anything related to that, like we're going to go to Mars. So they're going to try to do that. How that relates into more of a personal is you tend to gravitate towards the people who are doing things differently, and you want to do it different. You want to break the norm. You're like, man, there's got to be a better way of doing this, and I'm going to do it at all costs. So while that's super refreshing with brands, like I'm going to go into the parts of it that you got to look out for. It can kind of take you down a path of negativity, because we might be in the constraints of an industry like Tim, you mentioned RESPA, where there are certain things we can't do, and because you're so like, man, I just got to do it different than everyone else. You hate that you're constantly bumping up against those types of things, like the rule followers or the rules, right? So you got to be careful that the people you're working with don't see what you see, start perceiving you as a negative, or like someone who's always going deep into the pits of depression because you can't get your way on stuff. So that would be kind of the cautionary tale here of, don't let the rebellious nature like temper that with the positivity of what's possible.
Andrew,
we can't. Right?
One mentor of mine once told me, he said, be a wise and gracious nonconformist. And I think that there's wisdom in that. Like, have a sage in your corner. Have somebody who you can go vent to, but who's going to listen. They're not going to chew you out for being the rebel, but they're going to say, here's the 3 components of what you just said. I think we could actually get to stick. Learn. So that's great.
Yep.
Great stuff.
Very interesting. I wonder, when you look at Challenger Sale, that kind of reminds me of the Lone Wolf, which is not my favorite. And the way Andrew just described outlaw, I mean, I'm very much a rule follower, so that those two would be really tricky.
Yeah. And think about in sales, if you are like, I think it's so important to know your perceived, like what, because human minds, we talk about this, form negative thoughts 14 times faster than form positive thoughts. So knowing how you come across in your personal brand can help you temper that when you're going after a new sales prospect. Maybe you can identify based on what type of stuff they're putting out there, maybe where they fall, and you can appeal a little more to their common sense or their way of approach.
Yeah.
So again, I kind of bring in this full circle for everyone as we go through. Like, we need to be thinking about, A, what can I do? What fits in my brand type? And then B, how does that translate to me personally? Like the things I can take action on. And then what are some of the perceived, could be negatives if I don't have a mind about those. So let's talk about the magician. These are the fun brands. So like yesterday, I just took my kids to Disney on Ice down here in Roanoke, and that was fun. So think about Disney. Disney is the magician, right? So it's transformation, it's exciting, experiences, visions, dreams. You're kind of thinking about what it could be in like the most positive and fairy dust kind of way. All right. So keep that in mind. I think there's a little bit of that in the Explorer, but maybe it's not as positive or like just, oh my goodness, it's great, right? So just keep that in mind. This is really like, think about as an individual, do you come up with things where you like to showcase like an innovation, or like you creating something and you're really excited about how it can change the world for the better? That's kind of the personal brand aspect. And then from the negative, something to watch out for is aloofness, if I think about it, right? Like, you're not grounded in reality. So yeah, it's cool that you can do X, Y, Z, but it's not going to help anybody.
Yeah.
So just because you think it's cool, does it have a practical use? Would probably be where my brain defaults if I think about the magician. And I don't know if I shared the brands there. So some of the Disney stuff, just stay grounded. If you're a magician, make sure that what you're putting out there, makes sense and has a practical use for folks. So for the hero, let's get into this one. Well, do you guys have any guesses of what the hero brands are? Think
Dodge Ram.
Maybe that might be an Explorer one. So think about Nike, Air Jordan, Adidas. So anything that kind of puts like they overcame obstacles to get where they are, right? So like the hurdles, the brand, think about Nike's brand story, right? With started and how much pain and turmoil he went through and like what it's become. Yep. So it's about surmounting obstacles, the persistence, right? What you see on the screen, the dedication. And then from the individual standpoint, it's courage, perseverance, and a commitment to overcoming any obstacle. Yeah. So I know some folks who are like massively like, think about the hero would be someone who's like really much, everything they do is around their fitness journeys, maybe as a personal brand. They're all about conquering that next goal or obstacle in their life. And they're very authentic about it. So that's what I think about when I think of a hero. And then on the flip side, what you want to look out for would be arrogance. So if you're constantly,
we know somebody, I mean, I went right to the same person. You started smiling, and what Andrew's talking about, the arrogance and the bullheadedness, can be their ego. So strong ego.
And so for me, when I really think about how you counteract the positives of this brand type, it's the humility, like, for example, back when I lived in California, I went to a personal trainer, and that was highly recommended. But the guy made me feel so bad about where I was and what I could not yet accomplish. Like I fired him within like 2 weeks because he was so good at crushing obstacles and overcoming, but he had no empathy or humility for where I was starting.
Right.
So we have to make sure that we don't come across as heroes. If we're the hero type, we don't come across as putting people down because they're not where we're at yet, or they haven't, or we don't think they've accomplished as much in their life to get to where we are, like what we've done. So just some things to keep in mind there. Anything to add there? But David, I like that you resonate because you.
Well, I think with all of these, again, the appreciation for different voices. But again, I know we're talking about our marketing and our sales and how our voice comes across. But I think be who you are, showcase the courage, the persistence, the dedication. If that's who you are, but just understand, like with the innocent, I think ask more questions, be more curious. Don't be aware that you might be showing up naive. Well, with the hero, be aware you might be showing up a little forceful or aggressive. Andrew, somebody just recently told us, they said, I think I show up very aggressive and I want to learn how to be more relational. It's a leader. I hats off to this leader for wanting to grow himself, but that was the feedback they shared in a recent workshop. And I just said, that's amazing. Self-awareness says, I'm going to grow in my humility to understand it's not about me, but if I know how to crush an obstacle, how can I meet Andrew right where he's at in order to help him crush that obstacle? So really just, yes, I think being aware is so key. I love that you're giving the downside of each of these. So keep going. The lover.
Yeah. So let's focus on the lover.
I'm a
So
lover, not a fighter.
Exactly. I mean, we all like to think that of ourselves, right? But you got to fight sometimes. So focusing on like intimacy, passion, and commitment. So that's kind of the brand types. Think of, I don't know much about these brands, but Victoria's Secret and Chanel. So yeah, I've seen the commercials. It's all very like intimate, right? It's very connection driven. So if that's you, if you come out as the lover, you're probably going to build your brand around like true emotional connections with people, nurturing. Think about like content and what you put out there could be very storytelling types about like you're trying to forge a connection with people that they can really relate to. And then on the flip side of being a lover, like what you want to look out for is an overemphasis on sensuality or like perceived sensuality. So again, keep in mind Victoria's Secret, Chanel, like none of us are going to be going shirtless and spraying perfume on our bodies and hugging somebody else. So just keep that in mind. So how you can come across as a lover could be also super, I always butcher this word, superfluential. Is that correct?
Yes. Superficial.
Superficial or like emotionally manipulative.
Yes.
So because maybe you're always like, it's a touchy feely, it's a hug, or it's like, what's going on? And if you're not truly serious about knowing and driving a connection, you're better off to kind of avoid that kind of behavior unless you're really serious about zooming in and truly understanding. Because most people can read through that a little bit on the flip side of the lover. So if we go back, so let's keep it rolling here for the sake of time. The jester. This is probably what I am not, but fun, lighthearted, enjoy bringing joys to people's lives. It's appropriately named. Think about like Ben and Jerry's ice cream, Old Spice. I would even say like Geico, some of these insurance commercials, Liberty Mutual, right? Like think about like these funny brands.
He's an emu.
Right.
Crushed center stage with a grand piano. Yes. Right.
Like, wait, what's happening? So think about these brands, and we all like a jester, right?
Wait, you're replacing me?
My caution in this one is I think as individual, if we're not a jester because we like it, I know this is where I've tried to sometimes do some of this. I'm not saying it's wrong, but if you're truly not a jester brand, like maybe don't go focus all your energy on being a jester, because some people just get that. And so it's humor, lightheartedness, not taking life too seriously. If that's you, you're probably a jester brand. So let's talk about the negative side effects here of the jester. And this is so true, you got to know when to turn it off, because being a jester can absolutely undermine you in the wrong setting. If you're not able to kind of get serious and have serious conversations, and you always want to joke about things, that can get you in hot water. So just know that, be aware of that. There is a time and a place for seriousness, even if your whole personality is built like Jim Carrey. So keep that in mind. The everyman. This is a fun one. I like the everyman brand because I think a lot of these appeal to me just as someone who likes to get out and do things. So it's just super relatable, down to earth. It's values and virtues, right? So think like fiscally responsible. Like I shop at IKEA and I wear Levi's. Okay.
Yeah.
You're not going to go spend $300 like Tim does on his jeans. You're going to buy the $50 pair of Levi's. I'm joking, Tim. You didn't spend that much. I'm trying to be a jester.
Close. That's all. Actually, David sent me like 7 pairs of Luckies because he and I had the same waist size. So,
well, there you go. That's another benefit to being
well, no, I did not have the same waist size. That's how you got them.
Oh. I was trying to be nice, man. Okay.
I know.
All right.
Yeah.
I was trying to be the lover. I was leaning into the lover. All right.
So Andrew, would like Subaru fall into?
Yeah.
Maybe this category?
Subaru would absolutely be the everyman, super reliable, valuable. Like you're not going to go spend an arm and a leg. It's definitely not Mercedes, right? So you want to think about, if you're just practical, I would say fiscally responsible type, the everyman is probably your brand. And then as far as like how it relates personally, it's about just authenticity and building community. Like think about brands that build community. So you're right on, David, like Subaru, like huge. There's literally people with license plates of like, they say Subiwoo a billion different ways. Like it's hilarious. There's whole subreddit
Right.
groups stuff. So that's that. And then the downside of the everyman would be too much focus on being relatable. Could be that you don't stand out at all. So
Yep.
no one shopping on Facebook Marketplace is like, oh my goodness, an IKEA dresser for resale, because there's no resale value there, right? So people do get a little more excited about used Subarus, but at the end of the day, how you tell that brand journey matters a
Right.
lot. Everyman, because it's very easy to blend in with an everyman journey. All right, so let's keep
Which,
going.
by the way, a moving company will not take any IKEA furniture. They will not take any responsibility, liability. My son just,
Right.
he didn't have any, but he moved across the country, and reading through the paperwork, it's like, no, it's going to break.
Yeah,
Just break it.
Yeah.
and it probably will, right? So again, our dad
It breaks
Tim was
just
probably more
sitting
of an
there.
everyman, you know,
It
like
breaks
he would
just
buy the
sitting
cheap
there.
tools. Yeah.
Right. Right.
So let's talk about caregivers. So think about nurturing, protective, compassionate. You really care about your family unit, your client unit, like that would be you. Some of the brands out there that have this voice are, and I don't, again, this is not one I focused on heavily, but some of the examples given are Johnson & Johnson and UNICEF. And then as it relates into more of a personal, it's really, this is like you're a true empath, nurturing and supportive. And I think in our industry, we actually find a lot of folks that fit right into this bucket from people I've experienced. We really care and we want to help and support and get people where they want to be. As you can probably guess, on the flip side of this one, it can be perceived like you could be smothering people because you want to be too involved. It can seem a little bit paternal. And then the biggest thing in our industry in sales that I find if you're a caregiver is you can absolutely be taken advantage of because you don't know how to take it from being empathetic and supportive into more of a business conversation in sales. Yep. So,
well, you know, what's interesting, Andrew, because I was thinking about this.
Yeah.
An exercise like this should be given to teenagers and young adults who are figuring out what career is going to fit them best. Like you talk about caregiver and account management, that probably would be a perfect, you know, the little brother, little sister of sales is account management. And, you know, again, it's, you know, a farmer versus a hunter, you know, that would probably be, so there are sales careers that if you're a caregiver is probably a good spot.
Right.
Yep. Agreed. And again, I think the key there with the antithesis of it would be know if you're getting taken advantage of when you're brand. Are people,
Yep.
Tim, we talk about this all the time in our sales coaching, are people taking advantage of everything you have to offer, but they're not reciprocating with business?
There's also
a great caregiver, and we need to, you got to learn how to make that ask with your brand. So
what makes you so strong too can also make you defensive. And not asking for or leveraging help. So maybe having somebody on the team who is a little bit stronger at the ask or partnering with you in it, I think is very just being aware again of the downfall, the limitation, but also the massive strength that the caregiver is. But you're right, Andrew. I think we do see that a lot. I think that just understanding that, and here's one way to look at it psychologically. If you do have somebody who's taken advantage, they're actually limiting you from being able to be a caregiver to that many more people. So being able to understand leverage boundaries, I think, is very important for the caregiver. And also you don't want to burn yourself out. So again, just understanding your brand there. But yeah, let's keep it rolling.
Yeah. So like the ruler, let's jump into it. What you see on your screen, but you know, think about like dominance and authority a little bit. There's an innate desire that the whole world is full of chaos and we need to bring order to it as a ruler. So you want to do that as a ruler brand. Think of Microsoft, think of like some of these tech companies, probably like Indeed, Mercedes-Benz classifies under this. So it's kind of that aura of if you're a ruler, you drive a Mercedes-Benz, right? Like you want to have that control. And they play to that control aspect of people who want to have like that ruler image. As a personal brand rule, it's just confidence in leadership, and it's about being stable and responsible. So if you feel like in every situation you're trying to bring people together, we're trying to all move something forward, we're trying to be stable, responsible, you might fall into like a ruler category. And then on the flip side of that one, what you got to look out for is becoming a dictator, for lack of a better word. So you can be perceived as like being an elitist or authoritarian, or, you know, it's your way or the highway. So if you're working in, and I think in our space, again, Tim, there's a lot of people who choose to work in real estate because of the certain amount of autonomy it gives them. They don't want to, especially real estate agents, don't want to work a 9 to 5 where they go in. Like, people who don't love hierarchy are going to be like oil and water with a ruler
Right.
per brand type. So just keep that in mind as well.
Yeah.
You're kind of appealing to people who like that with your brand type. So just be aware of that. And then finally, to bring us home, and we can open it up for some more conversation, would be the creator. And this is really, think about like Lego, Adobe, Canva, like just brands that are creating something enduring and exceptional. And like, it's all about what's the next thing that's moving something forward. We can't get stale. We have to be on the cutting edge. Definitely not Blockbuster, right? They thought they
Yeah.
weren't. So keep that in mind. And then for the personal side of that, it would be the value of originality. And I know for me, I talk to a lot of groups about creating content, and I always talk about this piece about being original. And so for the creator brand types individually, it's very hard to think about making content that's not original. So if that's you, you might fall into this bucket of being a creator. You want to bring something new and innovative. And so it bugs you if you're not able to do that. And then on the flip side of the creator, and this is exactly kind of what I was saying, it leads to that, like, what I'm going to share is going to be impractical or not valued because it's not new and exciting.
Mhm.
So it literally holds you back. And so the cool thing about this one is it's not necessarily like other people are going to perceive you as such, but I think it's going to drive you to have a lack of action. And the key word that I think about would be like, you're so concerned about the form of the thing that you never actually put it into action.
Yeah. Yeah.
And because it's not up to your own standard of your creativity. So those are kind of the 12. I hope that was helpful, just going through and kind of talking about it. Did you want to just quickly highlight the ones, Tim, that kind of blend and the ones that don't, or do you want to, like, where are we at with time?
Yeah, we're okay on time. David, what would you add to Andrew's high level? I mean, I know we added as we went, but
No, I think, I mean, this is great. I had not been exposed to this before. It makes tremendous sense. Again, I would impress upon folks, as you build your brand, or you are a brand, to, you know, the consistency and the being authentic, being your authentic self, genuine. If you have to become someone, you know, for a relationship, whether that's a company or a dating relationship or whatever, if you have to become something that you're not, to fit in, I think it's a very uncomfortable spot. And I think that, you know, the more that we learn ourselves, about ourselves, what type of listener we are. We went through that exercise a couple months ago. That was very eye-opening to me. Disc profiling. I like the like recommended combinations, those to avoid. You know, I can make sense as well. And it's just interesting as we went through some of these, whether a company stuck out of my mind or individual person. You know, when I think about Jester, outside of in one of the suburbs outside of Nashville, there's a car dealership that on their commercials they say, we'll trade for anything that doesn't eat. You know, and so it's funny. I mean, you can bring anything in, I guess a sofa or a chair.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I don't take them as a serious option if I were to go buy a used car. But that's their shtick, and they're not deviating from it. And
right.
you know, if I was in the neighborhood, it's
Right.
a little bit outside of Nashville, would I just stop in just to see? They're probably fantastic people. So it's just interesting to look at just the corporate brands and the personal brands, because you know, we all know people, and I would imagine with most, like, the difficulty in answering some of these questions, you know, you can only answer one, that we become a blend of these things. Yes, you know, I can probably sit in as a sage, but also there's a good part of me that I can jest with the best of them. I'm a caregiver. the outlaw, the outlaw it just bothers me
It
because
irks you. I know.
I've
David's
had
a
people
right there.
that
When I
I've
used to pull
led.
in, when we were team selling, and I would be out in the field, David, I would pull in. He would make me back the car up, pull it in again, because that white line had to be so straight. So, David, you really did bring a whole nother strength out of me, which I do appreciate now, not at the time. But Andrew, you were itching to say something.
Well, David, you were talking about like that the dealership was not appealing to you, but they were okay with that. And so I think there's a very important piece to make here. It's important to know your brand, like who you are and your brand archetype, because you want to be authentic always. And so part of that comes with knowing that you're not going to appeal to everybody. And I think part of the maturation process in sales and in business is when you start becoming okay with that. And it doesn't get under your skin because someone just chooses not to work with you because they don't necessarily get along with you. So that's one piece of it.
And now that you say that, I don't trade cars. I have a 2006 Honda Civic. Susie keeps saying, "How long are you going to drive it?" It's like, as long as it starts. You know,
Right.
I don't care.
Right.
We have the nice car. I don't want to trade that car. So you're right.
right.
I'm not the target market that they're going after. And so again, they are their authentic self.
Yeah.
And they have been around a very long time. So it's working.
Yeah. I know we put this handout in the Tim. I'll go right into what you're kind of looking at
Yeah.
there. We kind of put this handout out in the chat so that you guys can take this. If you go through multiple surveys and we just wanted to put, like, you ever think about, I don't know if anyone on here does like the astrology stuff, right? But as a Taurus, I should not date a Gemini. Okay. So this is kind of that. If you go through and you find that you have two different archetypes, we put these on here as like, you might want to, if you came out as like the outlaw and the innocent, don't put those together because you're going to undermine each other. Whereas if you came out as the sage and the caregiver like David, you're going to be able to blend those two very well to tell your brand story. We hear the coin word out there from social media creators, niche down. Niching down means this is exactly what it is. It's not about appealing to everybody. It's about appealing to the right people for you. So knowing your brand, your archetype, and where you're going with it is going to help you niche down into the right people for you. And hopefully you can blend a few of these if you find you have some that are blendable. And again, I'm just going to shout out AI here again, because I think in sales, so often it's like, well, I do this so great. Okay. So if you're going through this, you're like, well, I do all this stuff so great. And you can't really think, you're like, what does this mean to my end user? What does this mean to the people I'm trying to attract? This is where I love coaching people to use AI to help you come up with the right words to describe what you do really well. How does that actually help? Just type that in there. Hey, I do XYZ really well. How does that help attract clients through their point of view? This can really help you, because I know sometimes I struggle to think of what does it mean for my client, right? So if you're there going through this exercise with the tools now available, we can help put our thoughts to words, or our inherent belief in what we do for people. We can put it into words that we can better articulate to them as a part of our brand promise. So I don't know if you're there, Tim, but I wanted to drop that.
That's great. And I would say do the quiz. I did just kind of trial and error something. So if you're still with us, or if you're watching this recording later, do the quiz and then mark on there, subscribe. I guess you can unsubscribe later, but hit subscribe. When you hit subscribe, it showed me results immediately. If any of you didn't get your results, maybe there's they want you subscribed and they're going to give you the results. If not, they're going to contact you with the results. Earlier it showed up within like 5 minutes when I didn't click subscribe. I just clicked subscribe and I went through it again with a different email, and it actually showed them up on my screen right away. So just a quick word there. And again, that could be their SC archetypes. And again, big shout out to SC archetype, but that could be their sales sequence there. So one thing I want to say, and then the 12 brand archetype examples, a lot of what Andrew did his research on, I put that link right here as well. So that's right there on the handout. So go through this as a team. Let your marketers and sales folks go through this. Maybe do a brainstorm afterwards about where everybody is at. And like, here's the biggest thing. And I'm going to stop sharing the handout. You guys have that. Can you guys see this?
Yep. Love you too, man.
Can you see that? Okay. I'm not trying to be the lover brand here, but I want you all to remember this. I love you. Okay. But you know how somebody says, I heart you? I put the heart there because it's IHU. IHU. I heart you. Okay, here's what it means. Stay inquisitive. Okay. Ask more questions than you make statements. No matter your brand, when you are gearing your content, if you're the hero, we just did this, we crushed this. What are your thoughts? Tell us your experience. Like, ask for engagement. If you're the innocent, be inquisitive. Guys, I was thinking about this. I would really love to see this. What do you guys think? Is this practical? Always be inquisitive. I think that would be a standard across any brand archetype. Stay inquisitive. When you come out making strong statements, you'll come across as a know-it-all. People don't like, even if you know your brand so well, I'm the outlaw. Well, be the outlaw, but then what do you guys think? Andrew, how many times has there been somebody so different than us who you and I are like, dude, we need to have that guy on our podcast, or we need to have that gal on this, because why? They had an inquisitive nature about them. They didn't come across as a know-it-all, even though they were the outlaw. So stay inquisitive, and then heart, stay humble. Say, I heart you, right? Stay humble. Just always think about that. Somebody out there has a strength and a skill set you don't have. They don't need to be you, neither do you need to be them, but stay humble. And I'd say for the you, this applies mostly to sales. The other two are more marketing and are outbound. But in sales, as we're reaching out or looking at like our scripts out to somebody, try to understand their archetype. Try to understand who they are. Because if they're the outlaw and you're the sage, you're probably, and if you want to just reach out just as you and not appeal to anything of who they are, you're going to probably just not resonate. So try to understand who your prospect is and their archetype. So with that, Andrew or David, would you add anything to that? Because I'm going to share what the actual survey result looks like as a
I think that's a great golden nugget as we wrap up and share the survey result. But really, I wrote that down, Tim. So great acronym. Couldn't agree more.
David, anything on that?
Great session. Learned a lot.
So real quick, you guys will receive this. If you walk back through it, you will be no worse for the wear. Walk back through the 10 questions. You take the quiz again. See full results here. And I just clicked the subscribe. So your archetypes values, it's going to give you your values here. Marketing your archetype. This would be really, really cool. I like how they say, observe these and other explorer brands. Like, go look at some of these brands. See how they're putting themselves out there. Again, you don't need to go overproduce your content, but you could absolutely get ideas and how to come across, and you'll probably have more ease of creation and ease of speaking to your phone and your camera, because you will have given yourself permission to show up as more authentic you, right? And how your voice comes across. And then I like how they give the digital experience insights. So when it comes to building a great digital experience, think about the love of adventure. They talk about excitement, striking visuals. It's funny, David, I'm always about mixing something that's, green with the podcast. When we came up with the art and our creators, it was like, I want something vivid. I want something, right? So again, that spoke to me. I might need to speak more towards you. You're more the sage. So it's like, okay, what? But that was more that calming gray and the solidified. So it's interesting. So as you're, again, developing your brand, just think about, start here and then build off of it. But the biggest thing I would say, guys, and listening, is just don't try to copycat what you see. Really start with who you are. And then Andrew, you said why, and I think that we'll zoom back there. So I'm actually going to stop the recording here for the recorded session and then go to some Q&A just to keep it very, very practical. But like where to start when you're building your brand. So Andrew or David, anything else as we wrap this up? You good?
No,
all right.
Thank you all for joining this. Great.
Absolutely. Thank you. I'm going to stop.